What's up everyone, and welcome on back for another video here on my channel. Thank you as always for joining me on yet another video. Within today's video, as we can see, it is going to be a monthly reset. We have finished the month of July and we are entering the new month, which is August. So of course that means we have to sit down and budget to see how that month is gonna go. If you have no idea who I am, hello, my name is Monet. I am 28 years old, and here on this channel I am dedicated to budgeting and sharing how I manage my finances. I am a person that utilizes the cash envelope system, and I've gotten myself out of debt using the debt snowball method. So if you're interested in seeing my journey or just enjoy that type of content, then please be sure to hit that subscribe button down below and join the family, and make sure you hit the bell so that you are always notified whenever I upload my next video. So as I said, today's video is going to be our monthly reset, and what that entails is that I close out the prior month of July to see how I manage my money and where it all went, and then we go ahead and enter for the new month, which is August. It is going to be an interesting month because this is going to be the first month where I am no longer supported with my full-time income, and I am currently navigating the uncertainty of a situation that I am in right now. But nevertheless, we're going to try and manage to the best that we can. And if you're interested in seeing how all that's going to go, then of course, just keep on watching. All right, everyone, so here we are back with my budget template. If you are unaware, I did create this template myself, and if you are interested in it and you find some use within it, I do have the link for all of that down below within my description. You can find this template on my website and my Etsy. So as I said, the first step that we go ahead and do is fill out for the previous month, which is July. So we're going to go ahead and dive right in. The first thing I do is filter on remaining to actual, so that as we're entering our numbers, it's going to reflect any actualized numbers. So as I said, for the month of July, I was just solely going to support myself with the last paycheck that I was receiving from my full-time job. So I did budget that I was going to get $2,217, and then it actualized at $2,220 for my last pay. So $3 difference. That was nice to see, but I was just happy that I got at least close to the number that I budgeted. So let's go ahead and figure out how I decided to break all of that out. And first, getting started with my bills. In terms of rent, I left this section in case my apartment complex was going to come back with any last minute payments that I might have to do. Happy to say that I am officially done with that apartment complex. I did get my final payment, and I did get my security deposit. However, my security deposit is not going to be budgeted as I thought I was going to be, because if you've been keeping up with the channel, you know that this month was a hectic month in terms of my car. So I had a lot of car repairs and things related to that. So I just went ahead and took my security deposit and put all of that straight towards my car repairs. So it's nothing even for me to budget with that. So we won't be seeing that. And regarding any current rent with my situation, I am staying with family. So all of those related expenses are on pause, and there's nothing for me to show online right now as far as those expenses. And for utilities, I budgeted $60, just knowing that my utilities are a month behind typically when you leave an apartment. So I knew I had one more bill coming for that. And happy to report I did receive that, and that was $58, so right in line with the $60 that I budgeted, which was great. As far as my internet, I put $51 that I was budgeting for, but since I canceled it before the next bill cycle started, I didn't have to pay anything this month, so that is completely done. So nothing I paid within there. For electricity, this is another utility related expense from my last apartment that I had to pay for the last month. I budgeted $90, and it actually came to $100 that I was owed for that bill, so paid that. And then the last bill I have here is my storage unit. As of right now, all of my apartment things are in a storage unit, and I pay that monthly, and that's $145. And of course, I went ahead and paid that. Here is rollover. This is a section I leave just in case if there's any dollars or anything left over. I just go ahead and throw that right into that bucket. So we will come back to that. But as far as all of my bill related expenses, that is everything that I did for the month of July. So now we can go ahead and move on to my expenses. And getting started with gas, I budgeted $120 for this expense, but ultimately for gas, I actually gave myself nothing for the month. I did front load my gas in the month of June because, as we all know, I was moving and I thought I was going to have to pay for gas within my car while I did the travel. So I put a little bit more money in my gas expense, but my mom was gracious enough to pay for the gas. So I ultimately didn't have to pay anything. So that resulted in my gas being more than enough to sustain me for the month. So there was nothing I had to add to that, which was great. So next we can move on to spending. I budgeted $240 and I actually gave myself $225 for the month within there. We will see as we get down to the bottom for what I spent my money on, but I did give myself a little bit more money in spending than I typically do, just because right now in this moment, since I have the luxury of doing more things, since I currently don't have a 9-to-5, I'm trying to take advantage of that. So I'm doing a little bit more things than usual and I'm covering all of that with spending. So next we can get into the grocery expense. For the month I budgeted $300. Ultimately I spent $245, so nothing really major there. Toiletries I budgeted $100 and I gave myself $80. Clothing I budgeted $40 and I did give myself the $40. And for eating out, I budgeted $80 and I did give myself $80. Okay, so now we can move along to the savings section. And within savings, I have my sinking funds, and first up is annual payments. I budgeted $50 and I did give $50 to that. For the month within car maintenance, I budgeted $40, but as we know, I had some unexpected things, so I did have to give a little bit more there than I anticipated. So for the month I gave $240 within that envelope to help me with all of those car expenses that I had to deal with. Next it is car insurance. That was budgeted at $100 and I did give that $100 for the month. Christmas was $40 and I gave $40. Gifts was $30, but I gave $25 instead. Medical and household, both of these sinking funds are on pause, so nothing was budgeted and nothing was actually given to those. Travel, I budgeted $330 and I was able to give $300 within that sinking fund. As for my emergency fund, this is on pause as of right now. I do have my emergency fund sitting with $12,000, so if I do need to dip into that, given that I'm unemployed, that is nice to be there, but as of right now I'm not adding any more to it. Next up, it is my month ahead fund, and that was budgeted with $300 and I did give myself $390. So this fund, if you don't remember from last time, is basically the fund that I'm trying to give myself to be a month ahead in terms of any money that I'm handling. Since I am relying on my social media income, my shop income, those vary month to month, and if I can get a month ahead to know at least what dollar I'm working with at the start of the month when I'm budgeting, that will help me navigate how I can manage my money. So since this was my last paycheck from my full-time job, I did want to give some of that money within there to just help me get started, at least to get a month ahead in terms of those funds. So that's just where that $390 went. And then looking at investments, I wanted to give my Roth IRA $100 for the month, and I was able to do that. I am just deciding to give a little bit as I can, just to try and still get into the habit of investments, so trying to sustain that if I can. And then the last column that we have over here is debt, but thankfully I am debt free, so there's nothing to put within that section. So if we come back to July and we look at the remaining actual, I have $2, so I just go ahead and dump that within my rollover, so that gives me a zero-based budget. So in terms of July, that is really where all of the money went. If we go ahead and look at the income summary, just to get a better breakdown overall of how my money shaped out. In terms of income, as we can see, the difference is that $3 more than what I budgeted is what was able to get added for actual. And then how it played out is that my bills, in terms of a difference, I was able to give $42 $50 less than I budgeted. So actually came in at $305 versus the $347 that I budgeted. Similar situation with expenses, which is great. I was able to spend $210 less than I anticipated, so $670 versus the $880 that I budgeted for. And then the difference between those two categories that I was able to not spend as much, I tried to put that towards my savings. So an additional $255 went there. So making my savings $1,145 versus the $890 that I budgeted. And then investments, no change. I was able to do the $100 there. So once again, another way for me to show overall how I got to a zero-based budget. Now we can go over here and look at our pie chart just to give us a nice percentage breakdown of overall how it looked. So for bills, we actualized at 13.7% versus the 15.7%. Expenses came in at 30.2% versus the 39.7%. Savings at 51.6% versus the 40.1%. And then investments the same, 4.5%. So overall, not too bad. Happy that I was able to give a good portion towards my savings. And then speaking of savings, this pie chart is another breakdown just to show in terms of my savings how much went to each category. So my biggest piece right now is my month ahead fund, which I knew that was my main focus that I wanted to give for the month. So that looks good. So that was sitting with 34.1%. Right behind it, we have travel at 26.2%. And then car maintenance is also the second or the third biggest one at 21%. And then the rest of my sinking funds make up the rest of the pie. So all in all, it paints the story of exactly what happened, and I'm not mad at it. I always tell myself as long as I can manage and not go into debt, that is my number one goal. So to round off for the month of July, we can scroll down to the bottom and look at my expense tracker and get an idea of exactly what I spent my money on for the month. All right, so looking at my expense breakdown, the categories that I track within my expense tracker are my variable expenses. So all of these guys are the categories that I focus on. So down here we see I have gas, spending, groceries, toiletries, clothing, and eating out. I decided to pick these categories just because I feel like I need to manage them. And if I don't look to see how they're shaking out week over week, I can get a little spend happy. So knowing exactly where I'm sitting with these categories throughout the month helps me to stay within my budget. So for the month, if we total up all of these expenses, I did spend $1,151 across all of those categories. And if we want to take a peek line by line just to get a feel of what I did. So the first guy that I have is gas. So if I go ahead and check this, it will just highlight however many times I use that expense throughout the month. So looking at the pie chart, it's showing that gas was used 7.6% worth of my spending. And that was a total of $88 that I spent for the month. I went and got gas 4 times this month. That seems pretty in line now that I'm in a new location. I was trying to get a gauge of how much gas I would use for the month, and I feel like at least 4 to 5 pumps is probably how much I will be using typically. I did voice that my cousin lives a little bit in a secluded area, so it's a little bit more driving that I will do to get to certain places. So as a result, gas is just spent more. So the next category that we can look at is spending. Spending total $350 spent for the month, and looking at the chart, that was 30.4%. So that is the biggest piece of the pie. I did know that I was going to get into a few things this month. Just looking at some of the big guys that I spent, my cousin and I did 2 events. I had to pay for tickets for those, and I paid for the parking for us, and we went to a water park. When we went to the water park, I paid for the tickets, I paid for the locker, and for some drinks and stuff that we did. So I took all of that out of spending. What else? While I was out, we went and got Cold Stone. And then I also had to ship some things from the post office. Oh, and my best friend came to visit my cousin and I, and we did an escape room. So I was just getting into a few things this month, and I'm not mad about it. I had a good time. It was a nice detox from the month prior from moving, and I feel like I still did a reasonable amount, so not too bad for myself. The next category I have here is groceries, and that is showing that I spent $300 for the month within there, so that's the second biggest piece at 26.1%, and that seems reasonable for me. My cousin and I have gotten into the habit of just sharing groceries, so she gets what she needs, I get what I need, and then we just collectively use it within the house. So it's working out great. I'm basically just budgeting as if I'm still living by myself. Seems to be working fine. The next one is toiletries. That was $143 for the month, and that is accounting for about 12.4% of my spending. I did go to Walmart and Publix and pick up some toiletry related things for the house. I went to Walmart again, and I believe I got my eyebrows done. Yeah, and I got my eyebrows done. So that was basically the spending within toiletries. Next up, we have clothing. That was $100, so that was 8.7%. Clothing, I did quite a few this month. As I said, we went to a concert this month, and I didn't have an outfit for the concert, so I went and bought for that. And then while we were at the mall, since I haven't been clothing shopping in some time, I just went on a little clothing spree and, bought some things. It totaled $100 for the month, so didn't seem too bad. And then the last thing is eating out, which was $170 for the month, and that was 14.8%. So yeah, that's a little bit high. I am normally not eating out that much, but as I said, I've just been out of the house a lot, and whenever I'm out, I'm just grabbing snacks, grabbing food. But yeah, it was just various places of eating out. I got a funnel cake, a Jersey Mike's. When we were at the mall, I got some food from the mall. We went to IHOP when my best friend visited. So, it's just a lot of eating out, some things that I did. But all in all, that is really the breakdown of where I spent my money. The main thing I look at over here is this expenses remaining check-in, and I look at this left to spend column because this is telling me currently how much I have within those categories, and depending on when I'm gonna get paid again, these amounts have to support me until I get my next paycheck. So right now I have a left to spend within gas of $104. Spending, I have $20. Groceries, I'm left with $180. Toiletries, $32. Clothing, $45, and eating out, $5. So yeah, getting a little bit low on some of these categories, but I am going to pay myself at the end of this week, so that should be enough to sustain me until then. So I don't really have any major concerns within there. But in terms of July, how I close out the budget and put in my actual numbers, that is really all that I do. The next thing that we can go ahead and touch on to just completely put a close on July is going to the tab that says savings tracker, and I want to go ahead and input any spending that I've done within my sinking funds just to make sure that I am in line with that. All right, so here I am at my savings tracker, and right now I'm showing with a total of $28,585 across all of my savings categories. If I have a goal in mind for any of my savings, I would put them here, but as of right now, I'm not really working towards any goals. I'm sitting comfortable of where everything is as of right now. But what I like to do is to come over here to this savings withdrawal tracker, and I input any spending that I did within my sinking funds. So the first thing that I did earlier this month is I did have to book a flight. So I will just notate that as flight, and I took that out of travel, and that was $200. I will be flying out with my mom for the month of August. I'm going to help her out to do something, so I will be flying back to Jersey to assist for that, and that's what that flight was for. The next thing that I spent was for my car repairs. So this was my car tires that I had to put on. So I took that out of car maintenance, and that was $440 for that. So that's the only car repair again that I'm notating, because the rest just canceled itself out. So it's no need for me to write all of that stuff down. But in terms of sinking fund usage, that is all I have. So with those deductions, that will now bring me to $27,945, which seems in line. And the main fund that I'm currently focusing on right now is this month ahead fund. Right now it's sitting with $2,158, and that is the money that I'm going to be using as basically like a paycheck to myself. So with that in mind and everything else looking good, we can go ahead and now set up for August. Seems like it's going to be an interesting month, and I want to at least give myself a good start by budgeting the money and telling everything where it needs to go. All right, so here we are for a new month, and we are looking at the month of August. In terms of paydays, I am still going to treat myself as if I'm getting paid bi-weekly. I feel like that's the best way for me to allocate my money, and I'm just in a habit of that, so I want to just keep that steady routine. So the paydays that I'm going to give myself is going to be August 8th and August 22nd. So those are the 2 times that we should be getting paid for the month. As far as an income source, we are going to use our month ahead fund. And just to clarify, this is money that I'm giving myself from my businesses after taxes, after putting money back into the business. These are just paychecks that I consider for myself. And I'm trying to give myself the least amount possible, like just enough for me to sustain. With that in mind, I feel like the number that will work for me is at least budgeting for $1,500 for the month. So that is what we're going to work with. And now that we have that number in mind, let us see how I am going to divvy that out. So for the month of August, just to set the tone, as I shared, I am going to be spending some time with my mom, and I will be spending a week with her. So I will be away from my home. So I'm keeping that in mind in terms of like groceries and gas that I may have to put in my car. If I'm not going to be home, I may be more inclined to spend more. And then also I am going to a party for my cousin. It's like a go away party for him. He recently was accepted into the military, so we are just doing like a little send-off and congratulatory party for him. So I am also probably going to want to get him like a gift of some sort for that. So those are just things that I'm trying to keep top of mind in terms of money that I may be spending. But getting started with the bills, here I only wrote down storage unit because thankfully I am blessed enough to currently only have to deal with one bill. I truly cannot reiterate how beneficial getting rid of my debt and doing that prior and putting all that work in, so that at least currently right now I don't have too much things that I need to pay for. Right now my storage unit is $145 for the month, so that is what I'm budgeting. In terms of like rent, when I shared with you guys last time for my cousin, anything that I do give to her, I'm just not comfortable with, sharing it online. I feel like that's a personal thing between she and I, so that's not going to be accounted for in here. But as for what I'm sharing, that's the only bill right now that I am managing. So the next thing that we can go ahead and get into are my variable expenses. And for gas, I still feel like I have a reasonable amount of gas, but I am going to give myself $80 for the month, just in case while I'm with my mom, sometimes I might want to pay gas for her and help her out with that. So that's kind of what I am allotting this gas for, because we are going on like a road trip. So gas will be spent, and I want to put at least some money aside to help if I can. As for spending, I'm going to give myself $300 for the month. I just might be getting into some things, and I'd rather protect myself with the $300 while I'm away from home. Groceries, I brought that down slightly, so I'm just putting $200 there for the month. Toiletries is going to get $90. Clothing, I budgeted $40, and then eating out, I did a slight increase there with $100 for the month. All right, so with all of that entered for expenses, we can go ahead and get into savings. For my sinking funds, I voiced this before, but for my annual payments, I have reflected and looked at some things that I don't think I need to pay for in this moment as of right now. So I don't want to continuously add to that, so that is on pause. The next thing is going to be car maintenance. I'm going to try and budget $40 for the month to put some money back in there just to kind of get me back to a good number that I'm comfortable with, given that I just spent some money within car maintenance. Car insurance, I am budgeting $100 for the month within there. I pay that every 6 months, so I'm just steadily putting money in there to build that up. Christmas is going to get $45. Gifts is going to get $40. I did increase that, as I said, just in case I want to get something for my cousin for his go-away party. Household medical is on pause. Travel is getting $220 for the month, and then my emergency fund is on pause. So nothing that I'm going to put within there. And then over here we have my investments. I am once again going to try and shoot for that $100 that I want to put aside just to, again, keep investing and getting into that habit. But as for all of the dollars, that is it. As we can see, that gets me down to a zero-based budget. Not a lot, but still wanted to share and at least tell you guys how I'm going to manage my money. And then if we go ahead and look at the income summary, as we can see for income, we're starting with the $1,500. And then for total of bills, that was $145. Total for expenses came to $810. For savings, sitting with a budgeted of $445, and investments with $100. In terms of the pie chart and looking at our percentages, that would have bills at 9.7%, expenses at 54%, savings at 29.7%, so almost 30% there, and investments at 6.7%. The last thing that I do is come down here to the check-in and put in any of my rollover balances. So whatever number I ended for July, over here, I'm just bringing that once again into August, so that once I start filling in my expense tracker, my left to spend number is accurate. So for rollover for gas, we saw we ended with $104. For spending, I had $20. Groceries was $180. Toiletries at $32. Clothing $45, and eating out with $5. So that is in total how I'm going to set up for August. Again, I feel like it's not a lot going on, but I am just, again, trying to be mindful, and I'm just trying to put all of the dollars where I can. So definitely let me know down below if you guys still find this beneficial and helpful. But yeah, as for August, that is all I have. So that will complete my setup for the month. All right, you guys, so as always, I hope you enjoyed the video, found some benefit, learned some things through it. If you did, definitely be sure to let me know down in the comments below, and give the video a thumbs up, because that is the best way to help and support, and it lets me know that you guys are still enjoying this type of content. If you are starting for a new month, let me know how August is going to shake out for you, and let me know how July went. But as for today, that is all I have. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will catch you all next time within my next video. Bye guys.